Back with more opposition to the implementation of a salary increase for public office bearers. People like MPs, judges, traditional leaders, magistrates, senior municipal managers, they're due to get an increase of 2.5%. Public servants this year are getting an increase of 4.7%. You may remember the conversations with magistrates. They say they haven't received a proper increase for many years, despite now dealing with more responsibility and more work. One of the organisations that opposes this increase for public office bearers is the South African Federation of Trade Unions. Their spokesperson is Trevor Shaku. Trevor, good afternoon to you. I have to say, inflation's running at over 5%. A 2.5% increase doesn't sound like much. Why are you opposing this so strongly for national office bearers?
Look, we are opposing this increase because it is mainly the members of the opposition parties and those in government who have actually been advocating for the wage freezes of the public servants. The reason they were calling for the wage freezes of the public servants is because they're arguing there is a fiscal risk which has to be arrested, and the only way to arrest that is to address the contingent liabilities, one of which is identified in their manifestos, including in the IMF and the World Bank reports, and the ANC has also identified it in the macroeconomic review in 2024 February. That the main of those contingent liabilities, apart from the SOEs, is the compensation bill for the public servants. So it can be that the same people who are arguing for the implementation of a wage freeze across the public service are now going to be getting an increase. And remember, the minuscule percentage that they may be getting, 2.5 averaged, is actually going to be a lot because they are already earning over millions of rands in salaries on an annual basis. So it is not even going to be constituting if you compare it with the 4.7%, which the public service workers got at the beginning of April, it is actually going to be a little bit more if you were to calculate it based on the average or the total amount that the public office bearers are already getting.
Okay, so I understand that, and I wonder if maybe one of the problems with this, and this is not a problem you've created, is that too many different types of people are being lumped together. So you've got judges and magistrates, you've got members of parliament, you've got senior managers in municipalities. And so, for example, if you look at the issue of magistrates, they, I think, have a legitimate case. Their responsibilities have been increased and their salaries haven't. Their working conditions are not great. Do you think maybe we should separate judges and magistrates from other people? Would you be happy, for example, for judges and magistrates to get this increase while members of parliament don't?
Look, one, we have got to also look at the fact that there are benefits that accrue to some of these particular positions. And of course, I agree firstly with the fact that we need to disaggregate this category because the category lumps a lot of people into what we call the public office bearers. And the magistrates and the judges, of course, will also have different types of benefits. So we are saying that in addition to the fact that we are opposed to this because the very politicians are the ones who were arguing for the wage freeze of the public service workers, we're also saying that let's look at the benefit packages that these particular categories of leaders in different types of government spheres are getting. And for instance, if you start with the ministerial handbook, you'll realize that these people are actually getting a lot of money in various packages. One, it would be either domestic travel allowances, it would be travel and subsistence allowances, it will be security personnel allowances, and a number of other categories of benefits. If we look at the magistrates, of course, there might not be the same benefits as you would find in the ministerial handbooks. And I think, of course, such a particular application of disaggregation ought to happen to ensure that we do not only make those who deserve the increases not get them at the expense of those which we know for a fact that are getting these increases and merely these increases are going to add to extravagant lives that they're leading, especially the ministers and the deputy ministers and the premiers, the members of the executives, even in the municipalities.
These are the people, the ministers and deputy ministers who get, generators and diesel and security and all the rest. You'll probably find you're on strong ground in that argument. Trevor, that the ANC is meeting. We may get some direction from the ANC tonight, around about 6 o'clock, as to which direction it'll go. You have a difficult relationship with the ANC, but if they asked you for some advice, what would you say? Who should they go with in a coalition?
Look, let me start with a disclaimer, Steve. The first one is that some people have been treating the ANC as if it is a saint here, and that it is only going to be the partner in that particular coalition, which has to be carefully chosen. And that's problematic because it seeks to water down the problems that the ANC policies have and have created, but two, the constant and rampant corruption that we have witnessed under the governance of the African National Congress. So a disclaimer must be made first that even if we were to choose, let's say, EFF and maybe a smaller other party into that particular coalition, what remains and ought to be confronted is the fact that the macroeconomic policies of the African National Congress have been disastrous. They're not going to be disastrous because of a coalition, but have been disastrous. And proof is there for us to see these consequences in high unemployment, in high crime rate, in the number of students who are being financially excluded from universities, in the lack of spaces in higher education institutions because the universities do not have the capacity to accommodate all the learners who are leaving basic education into higher education, in the the corruption that has actually festered throughout the higher education sector, where procurement is used to loot and to self-enrich certain leaders. So these are the problems which, in our view, are within the ambit of the ANC itself. So even if we were to advise it to say, go with the EFF, we can only be doing that on the hope that the provisions of the manifesto of the EFF, especially on reindustrialization, on fiscal expansion, on restoring public ownership through creation of a pharmaceutical company, construction and housing company, and security company, and to get rid of the tendering system, will be able to nudge the ANC in a progressive direction. But we've got to accept first that the ANC itself is a problem.
Trevor Shaku, thank you. Spokesperson for the South African Federation of Trade Unions. As I say, a difficult relationship with the ANC. Trevor, thank you.